Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman. And Mark, always a pleasure to be with you, and I trust that you've had an outstanding week.
So far, so good, Ron, and always happy to be here as well.
Well, we're going to talk to a lot of folks out there in radio land today about retiring and making sure that they can be comfortable in their retirement and making sure that they can have peace of mind. That's really what it's all about. If you'd like to get in touch with Mark Silverman, let me give you the number here right off the bat at the beginning of the show, 520-333-7601. A lot of folks call that number every week, 520-333-7601. If you're more comfortable texting, by all means, send a text instead. It is 520-333-7601. Either way, and that'll put you in touch with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates. And Mark, of course, we talk a lot about retirement on this show. That's basically what it's all about. And let's talk about the desire to retire. Different people have different levels of desire when it comes to finding the retirement date. So I thought today we could explore different levels of desire as indicated by the statements that people might make to you and discuss how you'd help them on their particular level, whatever level that is. So let's say level one is a person who says, I don't see myself ever retiring. I absolutely love what I do. How would you help that person?
Sure. And I can totally relate to this one because I am in the same boat. I don't ever actually see myself retiring. Will I slow down at some point? Sure. But why would I want to give up what I do? Because I really do love what I do. So I can totally understand this. The problem is for some people, and more jobs are more physically demanding than others, that what if you physically can't, if you haven't saved or you haven't put money away, what if you physically can't go to work, even though you love what you do, but you can't do it anymore? If you don't have a nest egg or you haven't saved anything, then how do you keep going and paying for those bills when you physically can't work? And so it's important to have a backup strategy. So if you do decide maybe one day that you can't do what you love doing, or maybe you wake up and decide, I don't want to do this anymore, that you have a strategy to continue on and being able to pay your bills and those sorts of things when you can't work any longer, whether it's by choice or not.
Okay, that person is on level one of the desire to retire. Let's step up a rung on the ladder here and go to level two. What if a person says, Mark, I guess I could retire, but they pay me pretty well, and I don't hate it, so I might as well keep working?
Well, and the question is, you don't want to be guessing if you could retire. You want to know for sure. And that's why having a plan is important, to run the numbers, to know that if you're going to be able to retire and not run out of money and do everything that you want to do. And then always have in the back of your mind, yeah, I can continue working, but if I decide to change my mind and I don't want to work anymore, or maybe the company gets sold, whatever it might be, that you actually can retire. So it's not about guessing, like you said. It's about knowing with certainty that you can retire if something does change.
On level three for the desire to retire, I'd like to retire in a few years, but I have no idea when I really can. What would you say to that? And
most people are in this boat, Ron, like you said, they don't really know. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you need a plan. And working with an advisor that's just there to either sell you investment or insurance products by basically, putting you into different vehicles and not really knowing if you're going to be able to do everything that you want to do doesn't really help your situation. And a lot of people are in this boat. That's why it's important you work with a financial planner who's going to build a custom plan that's built on your needs, your goals, your objectives, that's going to point you in the right direction and give you the answers with a high level of predictability, whether you can retire in a few years or not, and with how much, and all these sorts of questions that people have when you're doing it yourself or working with a financial salesperson doesn't really answer those questions. So that's why you really need to work with someone who can put a plan together so you know for sure whether it's going to work or not.
You may be thinking these days very seriously about retiring, and we don't know where you fall on the rung of the ladder when it comes to the desire to retire. But if you'd like to come in and have a conversation about it, call this number or text to this number, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Call or text, because because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Mark will tell you that. And again, that number is 520-333-7601. The desire to retire. We've talked about people who don't ever see themselves retiring because they absolutely love what they do. Other people who say, well, they pay me pretty well. I don't hate it, so I might as well keep working. And then another person who really doesn't know, I'd like to retire in a few years, but I have no idea when I really can retire. How about the person, Mark, who says, I always pictured myself working another few years, but to tell you the truth, the idea of retiring keeps looking better and better these days.
Yeah, and we see that happen. I mean, people, who've been doing their careers for a long time, maybe they start to get burnt out. Maybe management changes, ownership changes. We see this a lot, and I won't mention company names, but where it's not as fun as it used to be anymore. So, knowing that you can, pull the plug, if you will, and say, I'm done. I don't need to go back to work. We've got the plan set out. So, if this happens or that happens, I'm going to be financially independent and financially stable and be able to do all the things that we plan on doing. And so, again, it all comes back, Ron, to having a plan and having a full-blown financial plan, not some, glorified spreadsheet or something like that where somebody's trying to sell you something that may or may not work for you, but actually having a plan that shows your goals, your objectives, all your information of what you want to do and telling you with a high level of predictability, you're on track or you're not on track. And that's why it's so powerful. And that's why we lead with planning.
Mark, let's say you're working with a person who says, and I know you probably have people like this, I want to retire tomorrow. If I don't quit this job right now, they're going to have to put me in an insane asylum.
We do that. But, our planning process, we've done it in as quick as a couple of weeks. I don't recommend that. But, it typically takes about a month to month and a half from start to finish, depending on, somebody's schedule as far as how quickly we can work with them and how quickly they can get us all the information, because it is a comprehensive plan. But we want, before you quit your job, to know that you're going to be okay. Because if you were to quit and then we come back and say, well, actually, here's the trade-offs. Yeah, you can retire, but you're going to be living on half of what you thought you were going to be getting. That might not be a good solution. And so you might not be able to get your job back. So we want to make sure before you do anything drastic or change that you know where you stand, exactly where you stand. And that's what we can help with. And that's really why it's important that you have a plan, especially if you're getting close to retirement or you're in retirement, to make sure, because we've run numbers for people. We had a couple about a year ago from the radio that came in, and they had been retired for several years, and we were running the numbers, and they kind of knew it, but they weren't really sure. They were spending too much. And if they continue down that path, they were going to run out of their money in their early 80s. And so we were able to show them with some changes how we could prolong that and how they really needed to look at their budget and cut a few things out. They didn't realize they were spending so much on certain items in order for them to be able to, going back to work wasn't an option for them, but how we were able to show them that if they made these minor tweaks and changed a few things, that they were going to be financially fine and not be a burden on their children, et cetera. So it's important that you have a plan, whether you're retired or still working, so you know exactly where you stand.
Mark, I'll tell you, I know that there are people out there listening to the show today who fall anywhere and everywhere on that scale that we laid out. There are people who really want to retire tomorrow, and they're just anxious to get it done now. They want to get out now. And then there are other people who may not ever retire because they absolutely love and enjoy everything that they do. If any of those folks along that scale of the desire to retire want to get in touch with you and come in and have a conversation about it to maybe determine where they are on that scale, what do you have to offer them?
Whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else. Here in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This is far different than a lot of the other financial shows on this station. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working, already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only local one here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call that number or text, whichever you prefer, 520-333-7601. It'll put you in touch with your certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. The name of this show is Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman, of course, your host. And again, that number to call is 520-333-7601. Again, you can call or text. Get the financial, physical. It's painless, I promise, and you'll be glad that you did. 520-333-7601. There's more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman in just a moment.
Extra, read all about it.
Back with Saving with Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And Mark, of course, is certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. His office is in Tucson. Wherever you are in southern Arizona, he would certainly love to get to know you. Let's get to I'll tell you how to do that in just a few moments here, but let's get to our In the News segment today. And One Economics magazine recently ran an article titled 10 Reasons the Stock Market Will Have a Good 2018. The very same day, a business news website ran an article about the impending market crash of 2018. So, I mean, you can get news that supposedly is news that runs the gamut from one end to the other. Mark, which is it? Is the stock market going to crash this year, or is it going to be a banner year?
Well, this exactly proves the point that I always talk about. Nobody has a crystal ball, so who knows? So the goal is to just make sure that you're prepared and you understand the risks that are out there and understand what your time frame is. You know, are you already retired? Are you a couple of years away from retirement? Because that's really what it comes down to. But if you're taking the appropriate amount of risk at all times and adjusting and rebalancing and doing all those sorts of things, and you're proactive with your investments, then you should be in good shape. But you need to realize that, you know, it is important that this stuff is important, and not to put it off, but really focus in on what's important and set a plan and have a plan. Because I can tell you, I read a lot of different things that are out there. And as you said, Ron, who's right? Well, eventually, you know, they're both right, but who knows when? Nobody really knows. As I said earlier, nobody has a crystal ball. So it's important that you're proactive and you're doing your research, or working with someone who is doing the research that's going to look out for your best interests.
All right. Saving with Silverman is the name of our program today. And if you would like to get in touch with Mark Silverman, call this number or text 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with your certified financial planner professional. He is a fiduciary. That means that he always has your best interest at heart. And again, that number is 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman, Saving with Silverman is the name of our program. There's more coming up.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And savingwithsilverman.com is Mark's website if you'd like to check that out. And savingwithsilverman.com. Really easy website to remember because the name of the show is Saving with Silverman. So it's all coordinated. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text 520-333-7601. As Mark likes to say, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. It does so big time. Mark Silverman is the person you need to talk to. Get in touch today and arrange a time so you can come in and have a conversation. Mark, oftentimes on Saving with Silverman, we talk about Roth conversions. That phrase comes up, or the name of that process comes up all the time. The idea of a Roth conversion is intriguing to a lot of people, and for some people, it can be a great strategy to enact. So I thought we could explore the concept today. And probably first on the list here, maybe we can get you to explain what a Roth conversion is and why it's worth considering.
Sure. So let's kind of start with the basics, Ron. So where this comes into play is a lot of people that we meet with have saved a lot of money into retirement accounts. Usually it's whether it be a 401k, a 403b, IRA, traditional IRAs, a 457 plan, TSP, thrift savings plan. We run across a lot of those, but people have accumulated most of their investable assets is tied up in these accounts. The problem is once you reach age 70 and a half, you are required to take what's known as an RMD, which stands for Required Minimum Distribution, which means you have to take a certain amount of money out of your account each and every year from 70 and a half on. You can take more, but you can't take less. The problem is this is taxed as ordinary income. So if you're lucky enough to have a pension and you have Social Security and some other income that you have, this is added on to that. And so basically, this money is going to be taxed. So you have no control over how much you can take. Like I said, you can take more, but you can't take less. It's a required minimum distribution. So one of the strategies we use is if people are retiring, let's say they retire at age 60 or 62 or 65, then one of the things that we'll do is do partial conversions where we convert part of those accounts into a Roth IRA. And with a Roth IRA, you pay the taxes up front. It grows tax deferred, and there's no required minimum distributions at any age because all that money's tax free. So if you're proactive with it, what we can do is once your income drops because you stop working, we're able to look and see what your tax bracket is and do some planning with assistance, whether you're working with a CPA or not. And we'll do some planning and run some projections to help in that regards to make sure that we can take some of that money out. So you're being proactive. You're going to pay the taxes on it, but we're being proactive. So when you do hit 70 and a half, you don't have to take as large of a distribution. Those RMDs are going to be smaller. This doesn't work for everybody, but it works very well in certain cases. And it's a strategy that we employ on a regular basis for people who are retiring, who are thinking ahead, that have a lot of money tied up in these sorts of accounts.
We're talking about Roth conversions on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. Mark, why might the Roth conversion be especially helpful for those who make a lot of money?
Because of the fact that they probably have a lot of money in these types of accounts, and their income tax bracket that they're in is going to be high. So if we can do something and do some planning, tax planning, to try to get ahead of the curve, if you will, it makes a lot of sense in a lot of people's cases. So it just depends on what your tax bracket is. Again, this is not something you want to do on your own. You want to be working with someone who knows what they're doing, or with your CPA, and those sorts of things to make sure that you're being proactive, because once you hit 70 and a half, if you haven't done anything, there's not a lot you can do. The only thing you can do to get rid of the RMD is gift it to a qualified charity, which means that you won't pay taxes on it, but you also don't have that money. That money's gone. So there's not a lot of strategies that you can do, but if you kind of think about it and strategize about it, you could be better off in the long run.
Okay. Are there any common mistakes that you see people make with Roth conversions?
Yeah, I mean, people don't know what they're doing, or they convert the whole thing. When we talk partial conversions, it doesn't mean you have to convert the whole thing. Let's say you have $1 million in your IRA account. It doesn't mean you want to convert it all in 1 year. In fact, you would never want to do that because that's going to put you in the highest tax bracket. But maybe you have, $25,000 or $50,000 that you can move. That's not going to put you into a higher tax bracket. Maybe that makes sense to slowly do that each and every year. So we want to really look at everything. So we have seen people make mistakes, but that's, again, why you want to work with someone that knows what they're doing, as well as a CPA.
All right. Another question here about Roth conversions. Give us an example, if you would, of a person who would really benefit from a Roth conversion.
Sure, Ron. I mean, it's kind of like I just said. Anybody that's got, a significant amount of their investable assets in qualified accounts, which would be, again, traditional IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, TSPs, thrift savings plans that have a lot of money in these accounts, where they're going to have to start taking these RMDs at 70 and a half. So if you have quite a bit of your assets in those type of accounts, it could become a real issue for you later on. And so that's why it's important that you do something sooner rather than later.
And one more question in regards to Roth conversions. How about an example of somebody who probably should not do a Roth conversion?
Well, if you don't have a lot of money tied up in these qualified accounts, like I just mentioned, then it probably doesn't make sense, but you don't have a lot of money in those accounts to begin with. Or if you're going to be in a very, very low tax bracket, or you need that income at 70 and a half. If you have other assets and other things to draw from, then it's probably, this is something you want to think about. But if you don't have a lot of income and you're going to be using those RMDs for income purposes, and you actually need that money and you're in a low tax bracket, then maybe doing a conversion doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mark, I know that there are people out there right now who are thinking about Roth conversions and probably have some other questions about them. And if they decide to go ahead and reach out with a phone call or a text that we're going to give you the number to in just a moment here, what do you have to offer those folks who reach out?
So just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you have always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we will address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one local here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. You can call or text 520-333-7601. Whether you live in Tucson or anywhere in southern Arizona, come into Tucson and have a conversation with Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates. And the way to make that happen is by using this number, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Call or text. Mark Silverman, of course, is a certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. He's on the radio every week giving you all kinds of good advice, but can't really get specific with any of that without knowing more about your situation. So why not reach out with that phone call or that text today and arrange a time to come in and get the financial physical, find out what it's all about. We'll have more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman after this quick timeout.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman, of course, the star of this show. And because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life, he does this radio show every week in order to help people. If you'd like to get in touch with Mark, you can call 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text, whichever you prefer. Time for story time, and Mark's always good at this. He's got lots of stories after doing this for so many years. Mark, tell us about a time when you worked with somebody who thought they'd never be able to retire, and you proved otherwise to them.
Sure. Ron, as you know, we do planning here. So the first step in our process is really to understand somebody's objectives. We'll do the analysis to make sure and understand, if they're already retired, making sure that they aren't going to run out of money. But if they're planning on retiring, figuring out what year they want to retire, how much they're going to need in retirement, and running those numbers. There's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, if you will. And so what we really try to do is show them, are they on track? Are they not on track? And if they're not, what can we do now to get them on track? And the same thing is true with somebody who's already retired. So we're working with a couple now where they're planning on retiring in 4 years. And we're going through, what they might be spending and those sorts of things, and running. In this case, they have one of them does have a pension, and it's taking Social Security into account and those sorts of things. And we were able to show them that they actually are on track for their retirement. There are some goals and objectives that they wanted to do that unfortunately we're not going to be able to do everything that they wanted, but for the majority of their goals and objectives, we're able to achieve those. And if they are diligent in saving, which they say they are, we will be able to do a couple more things that they were looking at doing in retirement too. There was a couple big trips that they wanted to take, and they have a daughter who's going to be getting married, and they wanted to pay for some of that as well. So we'll see how that goes. But they were able to do a lot of the things that they didn't realize that they were going to be able to do. In fact, they were working with another advisor. They had been working with this other person here in town for many years, but they never did any planning. They were just, basically investing the money for them without any clear direction. So the good news is that most of their dreams are going to be achievable. And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to.
That is wonderful. And I know that if we had more time, you could probably tell us 100 stories like that where people were just so happy that they actually came to see you and you helped them plan their way into a good situation or plan themselves out of a bad situation. And that's what Mark Silverman does. He's in the business of helping people and making their lives better. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text if you'd like to get in touch. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll take a quick time out and be right back.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman, and I'm Ron Stutz along with the amazing Mark Silverman. And Mark, it is good to be with you again today. I know I told you that earlier, but it really is good to be together with you. And this is our Getting to Know You segment. So there are folks out there listening to the radio who would like to know a little bit more about Mark Silverman, the person. If you could have a video of one event in your life, what event would you choose?
Probably going to be something around my daughter. Probably my daughter being born, and I don't have a video of it, but we have pictures soon thereafter. But yeah, I would have to say probably my daughter. As you know, Ron, being a father, that's one of the most amazing things somebody could go through, in at least my opinion.
It is a miraculous event. I can tell you that much.
It is.
And I don't even have pictures of my kids being born, but I have such vivid memories. I don't really even need them.
That's true.
That's
true.
It's such a strong thing. So, yeah, that's a really good answer. And I certainly agree with you. And I know a lot of other folks out there can identify with that as well.
It's certainly life-changing, that's for sure.
Yeah, no question about that. And that is our Getting to Know You segment. Mark Silverman, of course, you're a certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman & Associates, serving Tucson and the entire surrounding southern Arizona area. We'll have more coming up on today's show after this.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Do you ever feel like you need Superman to help you with your financial crisis?
I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Well, we're not superheroes, but we can save the day when it comes to your finances. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman. I enjoy hanging out with Mark for an hour today, and I know I'm going to learn a lot during the rest of our conversation, and I feel as if you will too. Call this number, 520-333-7601. Call or text. You can not only listen to the radio show, but you can come in and meet Mark face-to-face and get specific with your information and your specific questions. 520-333-7601 is your number to call to make that happen. And you can set a time to come in and have a conversation with Mark in his office in Tucson. Let's talk about setting some financial goals. And I know that's really what you do with all of your folks, Mark. Specific financial goals will obviously be different for each individual person, but are there any general goals that you feel everyone should be shooting for? Just generalizing here.
Sure, Ron. I mean, when people come into the office, some people have specific goals of, certain things that they want to do in retirement, or they want to retire at a certain age with a certain amount. And then others really haven't thought a lot about it. I mean, they have generally thought about things, but they don't really have specific goals, and we try to help them in those regards. But, I think everybody wants peace of mind. I think that kind of goes without saying. We really try to do is understand somebody's situation. And I'll give you an example. Some people have a desire to pass money on to their children, grandchildren, make sure that they're leaving a legacy. Other people aren't as concerned about that. And there's no right or wrong, but some other people may just want to make sure they're taken care of. And if anything's left over, then, the kids, grandkids can have that. Their beneficiaries could have that. Whereas the other people, specifically want to leave a legacy. And there's no, again, like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's their money. They could do what they want with it. But we really need to understand what it is and really try to understand their situation. And so we can ask the right questions to really set out the plan and put those ideas in writing, so that we can build a plan that's going to work for them.
All right. Let's talk about some other goal-oriented questions here. How do you help somebody determine their own specific goals? Because everybody's situation is different.
Sure. Well, if somebody's going to be retiring or they're not, maybe some people don't want to retire. It's really about understanding and figuring out, if you can retire, would you want to? How much are you going to need in retirement? We have worksheets that will help, figure out what they might be spending in retirement. What are the goals that they want? Do they want to travel? Do they want to things that they want to pay for? Again, everybody's situation is different, but there are some recurring themes that we do see, and we will help those people because having done this process, I can't even tell you how many times, certain things do come up, and we're certainly help, we'll give people ideas, but we don't want to create those ideas. It's their plan, it's their goals, their objectives, but we'll give them suggestions. I'll give you one. Vehicles. People come into the office and they say, well, we got brand new cars. Well, if they're in their 60s, chances are cars don't last forever. They're going to need to replace a car or two at some point. So we want to make sure that we account for those sorts of things. Any type of major purchase or that they're going to be putting money out for, we want to address those concerns.
Mark, another question here. I know that you've seen just about every kind of scenario as long as you've been doing this. What are some of the unrealistic goals that you've seen people come into your office with?
Well, I think some people want to retire. Everybody wants to retire at some point, I think. Some people don't want to retire and they want to continue working, but they want what we call work optional lifestyle, working because they want to, not because they have to. But, determining how much they're going to need. And we say budget, and budget doesn't mean you have to stick to a budget, but how much you might be spending in retirement or how much you may already projecting to spend in retirement. And if you have too high of a number that's not realistic, if you haven't saved a lot of money, it's hard to generate, turning your assets into income can be a challenge depending on where you are. And so we do come across sometimes where people haven't saved as much as they probably should have. However, they want a certain amount of income in retirement. And there's no silver bullet when it comes to this thing, but you got to be realistic and you've got to take inflation into account. Will help with those sorts of things. But I think people sometimes have unrealistic retirement goals of how much they would like versus how much they can actually generate at a safe level.
And one more question here. How can you know if a financial goal is realistic and achievable?
By having a plan. So what we'll do is, and we don't judge, what we do is we take all the information, we spend a lot of time with people understanding what they have, their investments, their risk, the tax situation, estate planning, insurance, their investments, taking everything into account, what their retirement income may look like, and running those numbers and getting all of their goals and objectives. And we lay everything out. Like I said, can't guarantee that everything's going to be achievable, but we want to understand what is achievable. And then once we've gone through the process, which takes several meetings, once we've gone through that process, we will actually show them where they stand, what's achievable, what's not achievable. If they're already retired, adjustments that need to be made. If they're, a few years from retirement, what adjustments, what trade-offs they need to make in order to get to where they want to be, or are they okay, maybe not living on as much, but being able to retire at a certain age. So those are discussions that we all have, and we can go back and forth, and it really leads to understanding, and so that we have a strategy of where we're going from here, where we can monitor and adjust.
Mark, I know that there are lots of people out there right now who have goals, and maybe they're not clearly defined goals. Maybe they're not the right kinds of goals and that sort of thing, but they'd really like to put together a plan and bring those things more clearly into focus. If they decide to go ahead and call you today and arrange a time to come in and meet with you in your office in Tucson, what do you have to offer?
Sure. So whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we are going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. And we've gone through this process with so many people and who have been working with other advisors, and this is totally different than anything they've ever experienced. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all the types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be. So you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only local one here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. If you haven't written that down already, please do so. You can call that number or send a text to that number, 520-333-7601. Remember also, Mark Silverman's website address is savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. The most immediate way to get in touch and to arrange a time where you can come in and have a conversation with Mark is 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and we'll have more coming up.
When you reflect on your life, what would you like to see as your fondest memories? Summers at your favorite vacation spot? Ice cream with the grandkids after their first t-ball game? Maybe it was your great adventure across the world or volunteering with a local nonprofit. Of course, those memories are still in the future, although they're not as far away as you might think. Be sure you have a financial plan to make them happen. Don't find yourself worrying while enjoying that ice cream. Peace of mind is attainable in your retirement. With the proper planning, you can secure a meaningful retirement. At Silverman & Associates, we can help you make those dreams a reality. Schedule your visit with our team today. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. We want to make memories with you. Get started by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And, of course, we have some great questions that have come in this week on the request line. We'll get to those in just a moment here. But let me give you the number to call to arrange a time to come in and talk with the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson, wherever you live. If you live in Tucson or anywhere in southern Arizona, call this number. You can make it happen, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call that number or send a text to it, and you can make it happen. 520-333-7601. As I mentioned earlier, Mark, we have some great questions that have come in this week. First of all, from Jane in Marana. Jane says, I'll be retiring in exactly 1 year. What's on the list of things that I need to do before I officially walk away from my job?
Well, Jane, congratulations on being 1 year out, but there's lots of things you need to do. One is you want to make sure that the risk is appropriate with your investments that you have. You want to look at Social Security. What are your options there? When should you take it? Do you have a pension? If you're fortunate enough to have a pension, how do you take that? Are you married? Do you take a benefit for your spouse as well, or is it just for you? There's different options, joint and survivor, and those sorts of things. You also want to look at the tax consequences of doing different things. Make sure you have a CPA involved. What's your estate plan? You want to maybe get somebody involved with that. Hopefully you're not going at this alone. This is something that we do day in, day out. And that's where we really see the value in working with someone who's qualified. And I would encourage you to work with someone who's a CFP, a certified financial planner. I wouldn't go to somebody that's just going to be there to sell you something. I'm sure you're aware of other shows out there where they're just going to try to get you to buy an annuity or something like that. That may or may not be in your best interest. Chances are it's probably not. You want somebody that's going to really work the numbers to make sure that you're going to be able to do all the things that you want to do. Healthcare, how's that going to work? Are you eligible for Medicare? Do you get a supplement? If you don't, how are you going to handle those sorts of things? That's a big issue. Long-term care. There's lots of different things, and I'm not trying to scare you, but there's lots of different decisions you need to make. Some of these decisions, you can change down the road, but unfortunately, other decisions you can't. So you've got to get it right the first time. But we're certainly happy to help. Give us a call. We can sit down with you, kind of show you what we do and how we help people and see if it's a good fit for what you're doing. But you certainly want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you pull the plug.
Okay, thanks for the question, Jane. And let's go to Saddlebrook now. And Norm has a question. Norm says, how much risk is appropriate to take with my investments now that I'm already retired?
Well, Norm, that's a great question. It just depends on what your comfort level is. So, and risk is kind of a moving target. What tends to happen is people are more aggressive when they're younger and they become more conservative as time goes on. And then once they get into retirement, they become even more conservative. Not always, but that's likely what happens. So there's two things when it comes to risk. One is we want to understand what your comfort level is. And what I mean by comfort level is how much loss are you willing to accept? And a lot of people, they know how much loss they're willing to accept. What they don't know is how much risk they actually have in their portfolio. I'd say about 80% of these that we do for people where we back test it, we'll show them, here's how much risk you said you're comfortable with. Here's how much you're currently taking, whether you're doing it yourself or working with another advisor. And I would say about 80% of the time, people are taking a lot more risk than they're comfortable taking. Risk is an okay thing when the market's going up, because you're making more money, more risk, more reward. But the problem is when we do have a correction, is the risk that you're taking going to keep you on track and making sure that you're not going to run out of money, that you're going to be financially independent, those sorts of things that's going to last your lifetime. So it's important. There's two parts that go with risk, but if you don't have a plan or you don't have anybody that's going to analyze this, you really never know until you actually experience a loss. So great question. We're happy to go through that process with you. Just, reach out to us.
Okay. And one more question today, Mark, and this is from Gilda, who lives in Vail. Gilda says, I just received a large amount of cash from my mom's estate after the sale of her house. I'm hesitant to invest this in the market because it seems that I'd be buying high right now. How should I handle these funds?
Sure. And again, it just depends. Kind of like the last question, I think it was Norm, want to know how much risk. It depends on how much risk you're willing to take. And when you go into the market, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in the stock market. You could be buying bonds or other investments. It doesn't have to be all in the stock market. So you want a diversified portfolio. So whether you're working with someone or not, you want to make sure that you're taking the appropriate amount of risk, kind of going back to the last question, that you're comfortable taking. That's going to keep you, one, on track for your goals, and two, that you're comfortable taking. And so, the market is at all-time highs. I do get that. So you want to be cautious, but who knows? This market could continue to run for a couple more years. We don't know. Nobody knows. But that's why it's important that you take the amount of risk that you're comfortable taking, and two, that's going to keep you on track to achieve all of your goals. And so, again, working with someone who's willing to put the time in to make sure that all these numbers work right, they can develop a portfolio for you that's going to work to your advantage as far as your comfort level, as well as making sure that you have that money there to cover, there might be some taxes due, those sorts of things as well.
Good questions today, Mark, from Jane, Norm, and Gilda. And I know that all three may want to come in and have a conversation with you face-to-face. There are other folks out there who may not have sent us questions, but may have lots of questions in their minds that they'd like to get answers to. And I know that you have a special conversation you can offer those folks if they decide to reach out. I'm going to give you the phone number in just a moment here, but Mark, tell us what's in store when they reach out to your office and arrange a time to come in.
Sure. We've had some really great questions, and I always appreciate, and anybody can, if they have questions, they can go to the website, which is savingwithsilverman.com, and submit a question, and maybe you'll hear your question on the air. So appreciate people doing that. So now is my chance to ask you a question now that I've answered other people's questions. So, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I mean, I get it. I'm as much friends with many of my clients. They become friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? And I'll repeat, is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews? But hopefully it's more frequently than that. Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
And again, on that number, it is 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Now, you can call, or if you're more comfortable texting, a lot of folks are these days, you can send a text to that number. Same thing happens, 520-333-7601. Just leave your contact information. A member of the team will get back with you, and you can come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman face-to-face. You're not going to end up talking to anybody else but Mark. And he is a genuine article. It is 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson, but serving folks from all over the southern Arizona area. And one more time, and that number is 520-333-7601. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark Silverman. And Mark, it's been fun being on the show with you again today.
Ron, I'm always happy to be here. I know it's a busy time for everybody, but what I can tell you is don't procrastinate. Make the call. Get on the calendar. We are booking out a couple weeks in advance, so nothing happens until you make that call. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen, and be safe out on the roads, please.
So don't put it off. Go ahead and get in touch right now, and then join us again next week at this same time for Saving with Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.